As we pulled up, Jennifer's father was in the back of a squad car, and her mother was arguing with the officers that were on site.
You morons have no right to put my husband in there. When my son-in-law shows up, he will fix all of this if he knows what's good for him.
No, I won't. Can you not see the destruction you two have caused? This isn't a speeding or a parking ticket. You two ruined people's property and endangered the lives of everyone on the road. For crying out loud, you could have killed someone or yourselves.
Does this mean that you are refusing to make all of this go away?
Even if I wanted to. And I don't. No, I can't make this go away. Your husband is going to pay for the damage that he caused. Suddenly, Jennifer's mother went feral and screeched so loud we all had to put our hands over our ears until she stopped. She then lunged for me and started slapping and scratching my face until Jennifer pulled her off of me. She then punched her own mother so hard in the face that she knocked her out. Hi there, my name is Vincent, and growing up, I always wanted to be a police officer. My father was one, and when I would see him come home wearing his uniform, I just couldn't help but see him as my hero. I wanted that same thing for my own children, and I also wanted to help make the world a better place as well. So as I grew up, I made sure to do everything right. I studied hard in school and worked out, and when I was old enough, I went to the police academy, and the day I graduated was one of the happiest days of my life. Seeing my father looking proudly at me as I put my uniform on for the first time was everything that I could have hoped it would be. Years later, after I had been on the beat for some time, I happened to be doing my route, and I stopped for a cup of coffee. And that was when I saw her. Jennifer was one of the most beautiful women I had ever seen. She was working at the cafe, and when our eyes met, and we felt a real connection instantly. My stomach was full of butterflies, but I still managed to get the courage to walk over, ask her if she would do me the honor of going out to dinner with me. The smile that spread across her face when she said yes filled my heart with joy. Nearly several months later, and dozens of dates later, we made plans to introduce each other to our future in-laws. I know what you're thinking. It's a bit presumptuous of me to assume that we were going to get married, but both Jennifer and I had talked, and we knew that things were heading towards marriage. However, I would never have expected my in-laws to be as horrible as they ended up being. In the beginning, it wasn't too unusual. Just odd.
Hey, Mom and Dad, this is Vincent.
It's nice to meet you, Vincent. It's very nice to meet you as well.
Yes, it is. So Jennifer tells us that you're a police officer.
Yes, that is correct. I'm actually on my way to become a detective.
That's very good to hear. So if we ever get any speeding tickets, then I'm sure you wouldn't mind taking care of them for us, right?
Mom, why would you say such a thing?
I was taken a bit by surprise, but lots of friends and family have made similar jokes to me in the past. However, only a few weeks passed when I got a call from Jennifer's mother.
Hello, Vincent. Listen, I hate to be a bother, but I got a parking ticket. Would you be able to take care of it for me?
Wait a minute. What?
Oh, surely you can take care of it for me. We're practically family after all. You wouldn't turn your back on family, would you?
No, it's okay. I will do my best, though.
Just make sure that I won't have to pay it, okay? Thanks.
It was a pretty big ask, but I was worried that if I didn't come through and get it erased that she might tell Jennifer, and in my mind, I was worried that that would hurt our relationship. And so I asked around and was able to find a way to get the ticket erased. I ended up owing some favors to my fellow officers, but when my future mother-in-law called and thanked me and sang my praises to Jennifer, I felt very reassured. Months passed, and Jennifer and I started talking earnestly about marriage and what we wanted for our special day. We both wanted a small ceremony, and to only invite the people that were very important to us. After that, I saw no reason to put it off anymore, and I went out and bought an engagement ring, and soon afterwards I popped the question to Jennifer, who of course said yes. We were so incredibly happy, but that happiness faded when Jennifer's mother called. At first I thought she was going to congratulate us, but boy was I wrong. Oh, hey there. I guess Jennifer gave you the good news?
Oh yeah, congratulations on that, but no, I have something a bit more important. I got a speeding ticket yesterday. Some stupid cop caught me going 20 over the speed limit and had the nerve to give me a ticket. Since you were able to get the parking ticket erased, I figured that you would do the same for this one too, right? You're not going to let me down, right? I know Jennifer would be really upset if you did.
I knew that she was just manipulating me, but I was so worried that she would be right about Jennifer that I promised her I would look into it. A week later, I was able to get the officer that issued it to drop the ticket, owing yet even more favors to my fellow officers. But the worst of it was from Jennifer, which I found incredibly surprising.
Vincent, did you erase a speeding ticket for my mom?
Yes. I did. She made it sound like you would be disappointed in me if I didn't.
That's where you are wrong. I'm disappointed in you for doing it. You could have put your job in jeopardy for doing it.
I know. But she is family, and I would hate to let her down.
Oh, screw her. Listen, Vincent, I love my mother, but she is a horrible person, and if you keep giving in to her, she will only expect more and more. The next thing you know, she will kill someone and expect you to cover it up for her. I love you more than anyone in this whole world, but I am telling you, do not do that woman any more favors.
Okay, I understand. I won't help her out anymore. To be honest, I was a bit surprised and greatly relieved that Jennifer would say something like that. It gave me just the courage I needed when a few weeks later, I got a call in the middle of the night from her mother. Jennifer and I were asleep in bed when the phone rang. As I woke up, I somehow knew that it was her mother. Hello?
Vincent, I need you to come over right away.
What is it? Is everything okay?
No, not at all. Jennifer's father has been arrested. We need you to come over and speak with these idiots that are trying to arrest him.
Whoa! Hold on a minute. Why is he being arrested? What happened?
Oh, they're blowing it out of proportion. Jennifer's father and I went out and had a few drinks, and on our way home, my husband hit a few cars, but he really didn't cause that much damage.
So he was driving drunk and caused an accident? Okay, Jennifer and I are on our way. I then hung up the phone and started getting dressed. Jennifer, who had heard the whole conversation, started getting dressed as well.
Please tell me that you aren't going to bail her out again. I don't care if it's just a minor fender bender. I want you to promise me that you won't stick your neck out for them.
They're family. And no, I'm not going to do anything like that. But I will make sure that they are safe and that no one mistreats them at least. But if they are guilty, then they are going to pay for what they've done. When we arrived, I saw the path of destruction that Jennifer's father had caused. It wasn't just a simple fender bender. He had fully crashed into several cars, causing probably over $100,000 worth of damage. And that wasn't including the traffic signs that he had run over. And that was just on their own street. There was no way of telling how much damage he had done elsewhere. As we pulled up, Jennifer's father was in the back of a squad car, and her mother was arguing with the officers that were on site.
You morons have no right to put my husband in there. When my son-in-law shows up, he will fix all of this if he knows what's good for him.
No, I won't. Can you not see the destruction you two have caused? This isn't a speeding or a parking ticket. You two ruined people's property and endangered the lives of everyone on the road. For crying out loud, you could have killed someone or yourselves.
Does this mean that you are refusing to make all of this go away?
Even if I wanted to. And I don't. No, I can't make this go away. Your husband is going to pay for the damage that he caused. Suddenly, Jennifer's mother went feral and screeched so loud we all had to put our hands over our ears until she stopped. She then lunged for me and started slapping and scratching my face until Jennifer pulled her off of me. She then punched her own mother so hard in the face that she knocked her out. I was amazed that she would do that to her own mother to protect me. The officers on the scene saw it as self-defense and took my statement so that I could charge her with assault. Afterwards, Jennifer and I went home. We were exhausted and had no interest in helping either of those fools. The next day, the two of them were released on bail, and they immediately started calling us and demanding that I do something to remove the charges that were put against them. Both Jennifer and I ignored them, and over the next couple weeks, we avoided all of their calls and even the few visits that they attempted to do. They would come over at all times of the day and beg that I get the charges against them dropped. I, of course, had no interest in doing so, and Jennifer had my back. Eventually, they went to trial, and Jennifer's mother was sentenced to 2 years in prison for public intoxication and assault. Her father, however, got 12 years for driving while under the influence and for reckless driving. It would have been less, but he had hit so many other cars that they were forced to increase the punishment that he received. I had expected Jennifer to be upset upon hearing about her parents, but she was actually very relieved and even celebrated the outcomes to their trials. As far as we were concerned, they got exactly what they deserved. If anything, they should have faced even more punishments. After that, Jennifer and I eloped and got married in Caribbean. My parents were present, and many of our friends, but we made sure that her family didn't know anything about it. When we got back, we made arrangements to get restraining orders put against Jennifer's parents. The last thing we wanted to do was associate with those unstable people anymore. Then I got the news that made me smile wider than I ever had before. Jennifer told me that she was pregnant. I was so incredibly happy that we were going to start our family together, but what made it all the sweeter was the knowledge that Jennifer's parents would never get to meet their grandchildren. Both Jennifer and I would make sure of that. We had removed those toxic and horrible people from our lives, and we had no plans to let them back in. Thanks for watching. Please subscribe. You idiot! You were supposed to wait until all three of them were in position, and then you were supposed to run all three of them over. Now Marty isn't even hurt, and my mother will survive. I'm sorry, man. I got confused and just went for it. At least when that old fart dies, you'll still get something from your inheritance. Yeah, but not as much if all three of them were dead. Now I'll have to share with the other two. We could always kill them, too. No, you moron, that would look too suspicious. I just need to think. Listen, why don't you meet me down here, and we'll do some brainstorming. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Scott had plotted to kill my father and I, but also his mother just so he could get his inheritance early? Hi there, my name is Marty, and growing up things were great. My parents were wonderful people and owned a very profitable business. They owned several factories that produced all kinds of goods that helped us live a very comfortable life. That is, until my mother fell sick and passed away. It came on very suddenly and caught us all off guard. For years I felt like I was lost and had a really hard time working through my grief. But after a lot of therapy and counseling, I was able to accept what happened. My father went through the same thing, and the one thing that helped more than anything else was that we had each other to lean on. Years later, after I'd graduated from college, my father came and told me that he had started to date someone, and although I was a little bit hurt by the news, I knew that he deserved to be happy and that he deserved to share his life with someone. Shortly after he told me he was dating, he introduced me to Carol, and we hit it off right away. She was such a delightful person, and I could see what my father saw in her. The only real hang-up was that she also had a son my age named Scott, but we could not be more different. I was always a very studious person while Scott was more of a jock. The first time that we met did not go very well.
Scott, this is Jacob's son, Marty. You two are close in age, actually.
This nerd? Oh man. Well, I'm glad we aren't related because I would feel embarrassed to tell people that we were.
Scott, can you at least try to behave for a few hours?
Why should I? If Dad hadn't left us, then you wouldn't be dating this loser's father. At least he's loaded. I wish I could say that things got better with him, but sadly it did not. Scott did eventually stop being so obviously obnoxious, but he never did warm up to my father and I. Nevertheless, our parents kept dating, and they even eventually got married. I had moved out and was living in my own apartment while working for my father. He had wanted me to start off working on the factory floor, and I was actually very glad that he did, because I learned so much about the company that way. Plus, it made the employees respect me all the more since I was willing to get my hands dirty, and I never shied away from doing some of the more difficult tasks. When my father told me that he was marrying Carol, I was both elated and worried. Carol was such a perfect match for my father, and they made each other very happy. However, Scott was just a complete troublemaker. Shortly after he graduated from high school, Scott wanted to get a scholarship and play football for a college. But because his grades were so terrible, no school would take him, and so he just lived in our parents' basement while he tried to plan out what he was going to do. He had no real ambition though, and just spent most of his days drinking and playing video games, until my father told him that enough was enough, and that if he wasn't going to go to college, then he needed to find a real job. He even offered for him to join me working in one of his factories, but Scott shot him down and said that he would find something on his own. Instead, he enlisted with the army and left to go do basic training. After he left, things really settled down at home. My father and Carol were doing great and were able to really focus on making the company grow. I, on the other hand, focused instead on learning all the ins and outs of the company. I knew that one day, that there was a chance that I would inherit the company, and I would need to know as much as possible if I was going to be able to make it as profitable as my father and Carol did. A month later, though, Scott returned home, and sadly it wasn't because he had completed boot camp. Quite the contrary, actually. He had been kicked out because he was constantly starting fights with the other new recruits and had been drinking and doing drugs nearly every day that he was there. They finally got sick of his conduct and told him that if he didn't leave that, he would be arrested. The whole family was disappointed in him, but my father wasn't ready to give up on him just yet. Instead, he once again offered him a job at the company, and since he had no better options, Scott finally accepted. The next day, I started training him, and just as before, he showed himself to be a complete jerk. Okay, Scott, so I've shown you how to do your job. Do you have any questions? Yeah, why are you such a pathetic loser? Seriously, Scott? You're the only loser here. I mean, getting kicked out of boot camp because you're selling and doing drugs? That is really pathetic. Listen, don't screw this up too. Dad and Carol were nice enough to give you another chance. The least you can do is try your best and not screw it up. Oh, shove it up your ass! I'm only here because your dad is weak. He wants my mom to be happy and will do pretty much anything I want to make sure that she is. Both of you are such weaklings. You can't talk to me like that. Listen, all I have to do is talk to my dad and your ass is out of here, so you better shape up or get lost. Just be grateful you have a job. After all, when the company is mine eventually, I won't be so lenient on you, so smarten up. I don't know what it was that I said, but after that, Scott appeared to have turned over a new leaf. For the first time in my life, I saw him as a kind and patient person. He no longer talked back and even started taking the job I gave him seriously. In the morning, he would show up to his shift early and would stay late to help other people out. Honestly, I thought that maybe he had had a stroke, as he was simply unlike him to be such a diligent worker. It went on like that for months, and he had really impressed both his mother and my father, and quite frankly, even me too. I thought that he had really turned his life around, and then he surprised us even more. Hey guys, so I know that I've been a complete jerk most of my life, and it will take a lot of time for me to make up for all that. But I wanted to start off on the right foot. I hired a photographer to take a family portrait of us.
Oh, Scott, that is a wonderful idea. We could hang it up over the fireplace, and every time we look at it, we can be proud of how much you have grown.
Yes, Scott, that is a wonderful idea, thank you. I'm glad you all like it. I thought we could go down by the beach and take the photo there with the ocean in the background. How does that sound? We were all so impressed that we agreed and drove down to the beach together to meet with the photographer. Once we arrived, we saw that the photographer wasn't there and I had to go to the bathroom. So I told my family that I would be right back and went to the restrooms. As I was leaving the restroom though, I heard the screeching of tires, followed by a loud crash, and ran back in time to see my father and Carol lying on the ground. Both were in terrible pain, and it was obvious that they had been hit by a car. Scott was nearby panicking and didn't know what to do. I quickly looked around and saw that the car that had hit them had clearly drove away without stopping to see if they were okay. I instantly went into crisis mode and called for a pair of ambulances and police. Once they arrived, my father and Carol were taken to the nearest hospital while the police questioned Scott and I. After some time, we were told that there weren't any additional questions and were allowed to go and see our parents. When we arrived at the hospital, we found out that Carol was badly injured but would make a full recovery. My father, however, had suffered too much internal bleeding and the outlook wasn't looking very good. As I waited by my father's bedside, I heard someone talking in the next room over rather loudly, and I tiptoed over to see what the commotion was. It turned out to be Scott, and he was on the phone with someone who I could barely hear. You idiot! You were supposed to wait until all three of them were in position, and then you were supposed to run all three of them over. Now Marty isn't even hurt, and my mother will survive. I'm sorry, man. I got confused and just went for it. At least when that old fart dies, you'll still get something from your inheritance. Yeah, but not as much if all three of them were dead. Now I'll have to share with the other two. We could always kill them too. No, you moron, that would look too suspicious. I just need to think. Listen, why don't you meet me down here, and we'll do some brainstorming. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. Scott had plotted to kill my father and I, but also his mother just so he could get his inheritance early? I hated him so much that I quickly decided to do something incredibly uncharacteristic of me. I went and grabbed some latex gloves and some sedatives that I managed to sneak out of the hospital storage room when no one was looking. I then added the sedatives to some brownies that I bought in hospital cafeteria and left them on the dashboard of my father's car and then hid. Sure enough, Scott's friend showed up and the two of them met in my father's car to talk, and once they saw the brownies, they gobbled them up. Once the two of them passed out, I threw Scott's friend into the trunk of the car and then drove out back to the beach. I wrote a confession note for Scott and included that he felt no regret for hurting the family, but was only angry that his plan to kill us failed and that he would rather kill himself than go to prison. I then covered Scott with alcohol and threw all the empty bottles into the car and then placed him inside of it and jammed his foot onto the gas pedal in a way that would cause the car to drive out and into the ocean. As I watched the car hit the water, I did feel some guilt, but then I turned around and walked back to the hospital. Once I got there, I reported both Scott and the car missing and then went inside. Sadly, shortly after I arrived back at the hospital, my father's injuries took a turn for the worse and he passed away. While I was grieving, several police officers showed up and told me that they had found Scott barely conscious and clearly intoxicated in the ocean. His friend in the trunk had drowned, and between the note that they had found along with the drugs that he had on him, they immediately arrested him for the crimes of attacking my family and for the death of his friend. Carol recovered enough to witness the trial, but it hardly bothered her as she now hated Scott for what he had tried to do. To my surprise, Scott didn't even pretend to be innocent, and I could only assume that he just thought that maybe he had blacked out from the various drugs he was taking and had stolen my father's car and was indeed guilty for his friend's death. Between Scott's past and the fact that the judge believed the apparent suicide note was real, and the fact that my fingerprints were nowhere on the car or the note on account of me using latex gloves, the judge threw the book at him and sentenced him to life in prison without the possibility of parole. Carol was devastated, though. Not only had she lost my father, but her own son was to blame for his death. I did my best to console her, but it took years before she was finally able to move past the pain and just get back to living. As for me, well, I ended up inheriting my father's entire fortune, and I used a good portion of it to make sure that Carol lived a happy and well-cared-for life. I did feel guilty for what I had done, but I was able to eventually feel justified as Scott's friend had killed my father, so killing him and framing Scott for it felt like justice. It definitely wasn't legal, but deep down, I didn't care. Do you think that I went too far?